the overhand side plane half meltdown. So okay, if a meltdown is going from behind the back crossing your body to in front of your body crossing behind your back, technically a side plane meltdown, where I go like that, but on my side plane, which I just, hips, arms, not flexible. That's why I'm calling it a half meltdown, because you're not going the full way around. You're only just doing a crossover in front and in back. So your mission is to work on the half meltdown side plane in overhand, this one. And then if we were going to work on the counterclockwise meltdown, then what we would do is I wouldn't call it underhand because it's on the front plane, so I would call it clockwise or counterclockwise. You would go crossing the front and then crossing to the behind, and then crossing to the front and crossing to the behind. And then you would do the same thing with both hands in that same direction, drilling them both. Let's do your left hand first. We're here in underhand. You're gonna go from this underhand position on your front plane, right? So the whole entire time, in theory, it stays parallel to your hips, even though mine is not gonna stay fully parallel because I have a hard time getting it around my big ass. Then you're gonna go directly behind you and cross to in front of you, but with your arm like this, right? And then you're gonna come back to the front and then go behind your right side of your body like this. So you keep going between those and there's no extra beat, but more importantly, when you did it a moment ago, you did something like this, where when you were coming to go behind your back, you shifted the plane so that it was temporarily on the side plane rather than remaining on the front and back plane. Does that make sense? Your poi is here in front of you going counterclockwise. What I want you to do is a figure eight, back plane to front plane, behind the right side of your body. Like that. You can't look at your side and call it counterclockwise because it's front and back plane. So you're moving it like this, you're calling it counterclockwise. That's not legitimate because then you're plane bending and it's a whole different thing. So it's counterclockwise here in front of you, and then when you flip it back behind you, the objective direction, so you looking at it, it'll still look counterclockwise. If I look back behind me though, over my shoulder, it'll look clockwise. So I've seen you do both pieces, where you come around your back and then come to the front plane, and then you go behind your back on the crossing side like this, right? Then you want to go from those two positions directly with nothing in the middle, keeping it the whole entire time on the front and back plane. What you're doing right now is this. You're good, you're good, you're good. So you're good to here. But then when you're getting here, you're going like this, and you're changing the plane so that it's side plane. That is incorrect. You want to keep it on the plane parallel to your hips, right? So that it comes through and then back behind, and then through and then to the front. You're just doing like an underhand crossover, like this, when you're getting around. Instead of like this, behind your shoulder, on the plane parallel to your hip behind your back. Keep going, get it flatter, get it flatter, get it flatter. So maybe if I show you sideways, this will help. So behind you, it's like this. It's not like this. Does that distinction make sense? So I'd say there's a couple different drills that will help. You seem to be pretty good with this part, where it's going to there. But this is one figure eight that will help, where you keep your hand crossed behind your back, and you go from the front plane to the back plane. That's part one. And then part two is when it's crossing behind your back on the right side with the left poi, you want to do back to front like this as a drill to help get your positioning behind your back here. And then once you can do both of those, you can try and connect them together like this. Similarly, you would do the same thing with the other hand, right? So you would go You would want to be able to go from the front plane to the back plane like this with on the crossing side. And then you would want to go from the back plane to the front plane like this on the crossing side, so that you can put the two of those together like this, which in theory will then allow you to do the whole meltdown like this. One thing that would also be helpful, maybe, I'm not sure if you do crossers, this is a counterclockwise crosser. That might be a helpful thing to play with to remind yourself how to go behind the shoulder. Now, poi like this, and then cross your arms. And remember, you can have either arm on top, so the orientation is different. Clockwise meltdowns and clockwise crossers is what you're struggling with, and they're interrelated because a meltdown is a half waist wrap and a half crosser. You're fine with the waist wrap piece, you're not fine with the crosser piece, but you can't do the crosser in that direction, so it's all related. So if you learn the crosser in clockwise, the meltdown will probably be substantially easier. And just remember, so notice right now I have my left hand on top, but you could also do it so your right hand is on top, and one will probably be easier than the other.